Hi, Pete's fans. Welcome to another episode of For Pete's Sake, your weekly podcast on everything Peterborough Pete's. We are getting down to the start of the regular season. We are just over a week away from puck drop. That makes it official, and we could not be more excited. On today's show, I am your co-host, Josh Reeser. As always, in the chair next to me, co-host, twin brother, encyclopedia of OHL knowledge, Matt Reeser. And for this show, it is all about our hot takes and predictions. We are going to run through a number of questions regarding the Pete's, some storylines that will determine their success. And we are going to give our take on whether they are likely to happen, unlikely, and why. We will look at the first 10 games that the Pete's have this year and kind of go over our expectations and any standouts there. And then we will quickly highlight the final two tune-up games, two more preseason games before we go live for the regular season. We are getting there, folks. So without further ado, let us get this going with some of the burning questions and storylines heading into this season. All right, we brainstormed together. We came up with a couple Pete's topics and a couple from around the league, all related to teams that may challenge the Pete's and challenge each other. So let's get it started off. How do you? Let's take question number one. Reese, what do you got for us?
Yeah. So clearly, in your opinion, do you think the Pete's will be a playoff team this upcoming season? Do you think they'll
right
make
off
the
the
playoffs?
bat, It's a playoff question. I do. I think the Pete's have the talent to make the playoffs. I think they are a young team. Last year, obviously, unloaded a lot of veterans, but I think their progression, those guys, comfortable, one more year in the league with a decent crop of returning guys. They're still a young team. So I think it's a bottom of the conference playoff position, and I think that's more than okay. I think the progression is at the very least meaningful games down the stretch, but I think the goal should be playoffs, and I think they're capable of it, barring a healthy season. What about you?
Yeah, I think they'll sneak in. It's also a league where only two teams don't make the playoffs in the East.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of teams that, when you kind of go for it, like the Pete's did the previous season before this one, where then they lost all their players, those teams kind of taper off a little bit. So I would expect there to be a drop-off by the 67s. I would expect North Bay, even though they've been to the finals the last 3 years, conference finals, I would expect there to be some kind of regression there for that team. The Pete's rookies have played more than rookies from other teams, and I think they have more depth than they had last year.
Yeah, I agree. I think the depth is going to be key, and I think the Pete's have done well.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I see them making the playoffs, and I would see them kind of in that 6 to 8 range.
Yeah.
If I was guessing.
Yep. Alrighty. Next up, rookie Colin Fitzgerald scores 15 goals this season. Are you saying yes or no?
I think that would be at the higher end, just because it's a tough league to come in and score. I think he will put up points. I'm not doubting he'll do that, but I think he'll be in that like 12 to 15 range for goals as a rookie.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think.
I think he's got it. I mean, I think, again, you mentioned the depth. I think he's still going to get decent ice time this year. I think he's going to get a chance to prove himself. He's shown he can play when the game is big. Going back to last year at the OHL Cup, or sorry, the what is it called, the AAA championship is, I forget what it's called, but he was awesome in that final tournament. Carried the team on his back. I haven't seen anything in preseason where it looks like he shies away, so I think his confidence is there. I think he's going to get some touches on the power play. I hate injuries, but they're going to happen. So I think he's going to even see a number of games up in that top 6 if guys ahead of him get bumps and bruises. So I think he can. I think 15 is attainable. I think he'll do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to see what he does this year because
He's got all the
he only gets
skills.
better.
He's got all the skills.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Big time player for years to come.
Yeah.
Next one, Caden Taylor leads the team in goals. What are you thinking?
I'm gonna say he's the best natural scorer on the team, and he'll get a ton of power play time. Uh, but I think Lefebvre could do this, get more goals than him or come close.
Yep.
He's definitely going to be up there, but for me, it's not a runaway for him leading the team in goals.
I would agree. I think you're right. I think he's got an amazing shot. He's a pure goal scorer. I think he will tally a lot of goals. But you're right. I think Lefebvre's been putting on a show in the preseason. He looks dialed in. As long as he's around for the rest of the year, I think he's got a really good chance. I think a guy like Page,
Mali.
I think McCullough, Mali, I think those guys that have been around the league and can finish and have shown that they can finish multiple years in a row, I think those guys have excellent chances. And then with Taylor, it's I think when you're a young guy, there's confidence is a huge thing too. So if at all, not wishing this on him at all, sorry. If things start to not go well, maybe does he get on a little bit of a streak where you're gripping the stick too tight? It happens to a lot of players, even the great ones.
Yeah.
Maybe that kind of hits you more as a young kid than a guy who's been in the league and knows how to navigate those ups and downs. So,
Yeah.
I would agree. I think up there, not quite yet ready to hand him the goal scoring lead yet.
No. Fair enough.
All right. Looking ahead to the NHL draft at the end of this year, will we see more than one Peterborough Pete taken in the NHL draft?
I think so. I think the Pete's develop players well. They have a lot of young talent. Guys that were high picks in the OHL. They're going to get ice time, so it wouldn't shock me to see kind of 3 or 4.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm thinking. I think they have a shot at 3 to 4, and decent picks if everything goes right this year. I think Carson Cameron is a team. There's a guy that lots of teams are going to have their eye on. I think the guys we mentioned, when you have a guy like Taylor with that skill set, Aiden Young has great hands. Nico Addy with his size. I don't think you can count those guys out.
No.
There might even be some guys I missed. Apologies if I did. But I think any of those young guys, puts up a season or shows some sort of step in the right direction, they're definitely going to have an eye on them.
Yeah.
So I think more than one. I think potentially 4 if everything went perfectly.
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome. I don't know the last time multiple Pete's were, NHL draft picks.
Yeah.
So it'd be quite something.
Yeah, for sure. Speaks to the turnover from the team, but also the excitement of what could be this season.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So looking at their veteran, the other side of the coin here, you've got Stützle, Lefebvre, Mali, and McIntyre as the overagers. You can only play 3.
Yeah.
Whichever 3 do stay with the team, because we don't know that will be. They're all great players. Do you think any of them will be traded before the end of the year, at the trade deadline, or do you think all of the 3 overagers will remain with the team throughout the season?
So you mean after they've made that first decision?
Yeah, so they say, let's say they decide they're going to take Stützle, Lefebvre, and Mali.
Right.
Do you think those 3 would be on the roster on the last day of the regular season, or do you think one of them will be traded or 2 of them will be traded by the trade deadline?
I think it depends where the season goes. I think if they're in a playoff spot, even a lower seed, I think you keep guys around to help mentor those young guys in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think if the season doesn't go the way you hope and you're out of it, and you can give these guys one last chance for a run, and they want to go, if they want to be here, I know players love playing in Peterborough. They like the coach, as far as I can tell. So if they say, I want to stick around and I want to be part of building this culture, fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's keep them around. If they're like, you know what, I'd like one more shot before my OHL career is over, I think you honor that as well. So I think that's a question that depends on where they're at. I say in the playoffs, which I expect them to be, you're keeping the guys around to help out.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. I think Mali's very safe being the captain. I want his leadership around. He's been through the organization a number of years now, and yeah. So I don't know your thoughts, but that's the way I see it. Playoffs, in a playoff position come deadline time, keeping them. If not, you start working the phones a little bit. That's what I would do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think you nailed it. It just depends on how the season's going, what the value is, because you don't want to trade them away just for the sake of trading them.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get something back.
Mm-hmm.
Those will be two key factors. And I think it also depends, like, let's say you keep a Stützle. Do you want one of your younger guys to get playing time near the end of the season?
Right.
That factors in.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know any of this, but that would be the only reasons I would trade them. But I would love to see them be on the team for the full
Agreed.
season, because it's been fun to watch them develop, and it's always great when a guy can stay in Peterborough for his
For sure.
overage season. And
Yep.
I think these guys all have great traits and are good leaders from what it looks like. So you always want that, like you said, passed on to the next
For sure.
round of assistants and captains.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And the Pete's power play we mentioned last show struggled last year at times, struggled actually the year before when they were champions. Does the Pete's power play finish top 10 in the entire OHL this year? Yes or no?
I'm going to say no. I think they'll be like in that 12-15 range for the league. I don't think they'll be in the top 10. I think there's room to improve, and I think that's the step to get them to the top 10 for the next season. But I think this year will be kind of building off last year and getting a little bit better. And I think it will be more dangerous. I just don't know if they have the finishers to have a top 10 power play.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I was actually leaning toward yes. I think right from the get-go, you're going to have less movement on the team. Last year, guys were getting traded. Lineups were kind of being configured. This year, you're going to have more of the core around. There might be a couple moves here or there. But I think you're going to have steady units right off the bat. I think they're going to be able to build that structure. I think guys like Taylor, who've got the shot. I think Addy out front could be a good net presence. Then you look at returning guys, Page, Mali, McCollum, Lefebvre. I think they do have some firepower up front that's sneaky good. And I think they realize it's something they got to work on. If they're going to take that leap into the playoffs, the coaches are smart guys. They're going to have to win the special teams battle. So I think they've been working on it. I've seen some good things in the preseason, where they've been going 2 for 5, which is a pretty respectable power play percentage. I get it's preseason and it's not regular season, but I think they'll work on it, and I think it's going to take a step forward. And I think it will be a decent power play threat this year. Yeah. All right. Should we go around the league a little bit? I know you had some questions about some other teams, so let's start off. Who you got for us looking around the league? Some burning predictions.
Yeah, so the Steelheads, like everyone knows, made that big deal to get Carson Renkoff off Kitchener. They've also added over that overage defenseman. Do you think their trades will pay off? Do you think their Brampton Steelheads are a team to beat, or do you think they're kind of top of the Eastern Conference, but not the team to beat?
I think if they stay healthy, I think they're the team to beat. I think you saw it last year. They were right there with the Petes for a lot of the year, like top of the conference. But I think they surprised themselves and they were ahead of where they thought they would be. So they're young core. They're bringing back Porter Martono, I think, is going to be a high NHL pick. They're bringing back Misa, who's a great playmaker. I think he had 55 assists last year, which was the record on the team. That trade for Carson Redkoff, I think he's going to be an awesome goal scorer there. You know, you could play him with either Martone or Misa or both and load it up. They did trade Ryerson Leanders, but they have that backup goalie, Jack Ivanovic, who's a 7th overall OHL pick. And he was a .915 save percentage last year in a backup role, but he's shown, you know, he can handle it. He had a good showing at the Ivan Halinka tournament this summer. So I think they're strong. I think there is pressure on him taking over the reins. I think if he can be solid in net, I think they have the firepower up front. I think their defense acquiring the overager defenseman helps as well. So I think Brampton is a team to watch, and I think they've been building for this year, and I would expect them to be up there, and I think their trades reflect that.
Yeah, and then trading Ryerson gives them draft picks if they want to do something mid-season.
Exactly, they can still add more.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. The Owen Sound attack. We mentioned last year, Owen Sound's just one of those stable organizations that just makes the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll unload veterans at the deadline? Where do you see them this year?
So before the Petes won the last championship, there was a bunch of years in between, and they kind of played this, well, we're not going to be terrible, but we're not going to be near the top, and they were kind of in that middle ground where it's tough to win because you never really load up and you never really are bad.
Yeah.
You're kind of making the playoffs every year, but you're not getting high picks. You're not trading away to stock the cupboards again, and you're kind of just staying in that middle ground. And it's really difficult.
That's where you think Owen Sound is.
I think they're at that point where they either unload and go for it all because they still have Colby Barlow, who's that really good goal scorer.
Yeah.
They still have Connor Smith on the back end.
Carter George in net, who's an awesome goalie.
Yeah, so they have pieces.
Yeah.
It's just going to depend, like, is this the year where you say, you know what, we need to reset?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to trade these guys for value and kind of do what the Petes and Niagara did? Or are you going to go for it? Because they tried to go for it a little bit last year by grabbing McHugh.
Yeah,
and
it was a kind of a surprise team that I thought was going for it last year because you knew the hosts, Saginaw, were going to load up. London is just...
Kitchener was good last year.
And then Owen Sound kind of swooped in and made that trade with Peterborough, sending us Nico Addy for Connor Smith. But, you know, they went for it. That's all you can ask for as a fan. And so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I see them kind of similar to the Petes in like a wait and see approach.
Yeah.
And if the tires start to fall off, you know, you start making some calls on their veterans.
Yeah.
And you start rebuilding this thing because, like you said, it's hard to be in that middle ground place forever where you're just never moving up.
And they're in a real tough division.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, they never get an easy go.
No. No, which is like a testament to how strong they've been to keep being in the playoffs every year. So, yeah, absolutely. And a very good fan base down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Next up, Erie and Guelph. Who makes biggest jump in the standings in your mind?
I think Erie.
Yeah.
They got Terrence, who was a high pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
They've got Sam Alfano, who is a former Pete.
Yep.
Big physical forward. They've got that defenseman that went first overall they grabbed last year in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of, near the end of the year, were getting stronger and made the playoffs, and I think they'll build off that. Guelph lost quite a bit of their goal punch up front. But they still will be dangerous. I don't think Guelph will be a bad team, but I just see Erie taking a little bit more of a step than Guelph.
I agree. I think Erie, with those picks you mentioned, some young guys that are going to hopefully take the next step for them. I think their ceiling's higher, but I think their floor is lower. If things don't go well. Guelph plays a very defensive, responsible game, so you know what you're getting from them night in, night out. They're steady. They play hard. They're physical, well coached. So I think, maybe they don't have the ability to rise as rapidly as Erie, but I don't think they fall as quickly either. So I agree. I think the biggest jump in the standings, I think, will go to Erie. But if the tires fall off injuries, like I said, I think Erie could be a team that falls a bit more, where Guelph kind of is stable. They're a more stabilized structure, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Guelph gets a full season of Allen on the back end.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
he was like a top defenseman before he injured his knee and sat out most of
and he's
last
back.
year.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and they brought in Stillman to coach.
For sure.
So they
Yeah.
got a new structure.
Yep.
But they're never fun to play against.
No,
So,
absolutely not. Yeah.
yeah. And the last question I have for you here is Brantford and Oshawa, who I kind of see as the top teams in our division. Mm-hmm. Who do you think will finish higher than out of those two teams?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I looked at both rosters. I think it does depend on who comes back and who's healthy. I think Brantford making that Ryerson Leanders trade is big. So I think, if he's anywhere near what he was last year, that's huge. I think, they have the reigning OHL Rookie of the Year in Jake O'Brien, sorry. They have former Pete and Nick Lardis. So if he's back and healthy, I know he battled some injuries last couple of years, but I think he's right up there with one of the best finishers in the league.
Yeah.
And then on, I think they play the right way. I think they're deep up front.
Don't back down. We had some battles with them last year.
Yeah, they're tough. We had that line brawl with them. So I like the way they're built. My question mark is health with them. On the flip side, Oshawa, Callum Ritchie's come, a first round pick. And then you got Beckett Seneke, another first round pick this past year. And then they have the Leafs first round pick. What's that, sir? Danford, yeah, on defense. And they have another defenseman, Luca. It's not Pinelli. Luca, I wrote it down.
Yeah, DeMalio.
Yeah. I got it here.
Yeah.
Took some notes. Oshawa, I got Luca Morelli.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's another pick. He was a third round pick by Columbus, which is a high pick for a defenseman.
Yeah.
So that's a good core. That's a really strong core
and
to
Matthew
have.
Buckley.
Yeah, to have defensemen up and down the lineup, draft picks up and down the lineup, defense forwards, and then with Jacob Osterback, who's returning in net, like that's a deep lineup.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not counting Oshawa out either. I like the firepower on Brantford. I like Leanders. So I think if health is there, Brantford. What are you thinking?
Yeah, and
you're thinking Oshawa, aren't you?
Oshawa played a lot of games last year.
Yeah.
Which can catch up with you.
Yep.
Seneca hurt his foot.
Yep.
He's out for 6 weeks, isn't he? 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's still they're finalizing it, but that's the projection.
So you're going to go in without missing him.
Yep.
They lost a lot of veterans because they were an older team because they loaded up.
Yep.
I think Brantford is a little bit better than Oshawa. But having said that, I don't think Oshawa's done trading. I think Oshawa might trade for a goalie. And might trade for a forward.
Yeah.
And I think being there and knowing what it takes is important, because who would have thought the Petes would be in first place in November last year, coming back with what they came back with.
That's true. That's a very good point.
So I think Oshawa will start hotter than Brantford, but I think Brantford will pass Oshawa, and I think what you'll see is a Brampton, Oshawa, Brantford kind of 3-horse race at the top of the East this year.
Yeah, I could see that. Yep, I like that call.
But we'll see.
Yeah,
I'd love to see a Brantford finish third and us finish sixth and play them in a 7-game playoff series.
It would be a war. With all that history from last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that line brawl was quite something. Something I hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's always exciting, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, great. I think there's going to be some intriguing storylines this year, and I think the Petes could surprise teams this year.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll just have to. It starts soon, so we'll get a pretty good idea pretty quickly.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're gonna just quickly look at the first 10 games for the Petes here, going into the regular season. They have a shocking amount of games against the same teams in their first 10.
Mm-hmm.
They play 4 teams twice at the start of the year. They've got Kingston twice, they've got North Bay twice, they've got Sudbury twice, and they've got Oshawa twice. So you're going to get a pretty good idea. Maybe some rivalries starting right off the start of the year. I think one of those games is called Rivalry Night against Oshawa on the 17th.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Guelph and Owen Sound in there, which is a hard road trip.
Yep.
At the start of the season. So, not a terrible schedule, but you're definitely going to see a lot of the same teams at the start of the year and build some animosity. And I think it's a good mix.
Yep.
Because Peterborough and Kingston always play tight games.
Yep.
North Bay and Sudbury are tough barns to go and play on the road. And Sudbury, you saw how physical that preseason game was.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it will be a good test for the boys coming out of this start here with 10 games. And it's a 5-5 split, so 5 at home and 5 on the road. So you get a little bit of a mixture. Their schedule is more road heavy in the first half and more home heavy on the second half part of the year.
Yep.
But
It might work to our advantage.
yeah.
Remember last year we were dynamite on the road to start the year.
Yeah.
I remember they just came out flying on the road for some reason.
Yeah.
Couldn't really win a game at home, but their road record was like best in the league for a while. They almost broke the franchise record.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see if they still like playing in other teams' barns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of maybe getting North Bay when some of their veteran players are still away at camp.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned North Bay potentially earlier as a team that might take a step back. I mean, I still fear North Bay.
Yeah.
I think going to the conference finals twice in a row and then still bringing back potentially Wakely, Romani, Van Steetzel,
It's your whole first
like that's huge. Like that is,
DiVincentis.
yeah. I think DiVincentis is
over,
gone.
yeah.
Yeah, they lost him in goal, but I mean, and you lost Ty Nelson.
Yeah.
So you lost a bit on the back end. You'll have to see how much that hurts him. But bringing back 3 veteran guys that just carved up not only the Petes at times, but the rest of the league, that's mighty impressive. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not counting North Bay out. I think they're still a very solid squad.
Yeah.
They love their hockey down in North Bay, so they got the fan support. They're well coached. So yeah, I'm looking at that, and I think the Petes could come out. You know, I think a great start would be like a 6-4. I think there's a nice mix of home and road. I think there's some teams you should probably play with on there. I think there's other teams that are probably where you go in as the underdog, but you have to rely on, sticking together, playing the system. And when it's a team like Oshawa or North Bay, where you do have some history, or Sudbury from the playoffs, you got to keep an even head and just rely on your skills. So, I think each of those teams has a question mark coming back to. Sudbury, lost David Goyette.
Yeah.
But if they get Quentin Musty back and
They got McCoy on the back end.
McCoy's on the back end, he's solid. They got 2 solid defensemen back there. But if they get Musty or Dalibor Dvorsky back, he can go to the AHL, so he might be sent there. But if those 2 guys return, that's another solid lineup. Scott Barney, new coach, eager to make a name. So I think it's a great test, a great way to start the year. And I think a 6-4 would be great. Keeps you right in the hunt.
Yeah.
And builds some confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I am very intrigued to see where that goes. Before we get there, there are final 2 preseason games. One versus Kingston. It'll be a tune-up to see where Kingston is before we battle them for real. That is September 20th, which is this Friday. And then Saturday against the Guelph Storm, who's another team that we mentioned. They play in the first 10. So it's a good way to get familiar with some teams we'll be seeing very soon and also make some final tweaks and roster decisions. So we will keep an eye on those games, see if they're starting to play more of a veteran suspected Pete's roster or whether they are continuing to tinker and make some final last-minute decisions. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then, of course, the home opener next Thursday, September 26th versus the Kingston Frontenacs. Last year, Jacques Dubois put on a show, and we came away with a big-time win. So let's see if we can start this season off again on the right foot against our rivals from down the road.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be exciting.
Awesome.
I'd like to see Jenkins in the game before the regular season gets going.
Yeah, maybe they can get him into one of the preseason ones, see how he's doing at Easton Rye.
Yeah.
Just to clear up our goalie depth. I think there are a few questions we still have to answer.
Yeah.
But we are getting there. Trust the powers that be. And let's get excited for another season of Pete's Hockey, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, and just so people are clear, Strohak has still serving a suspension once the season starts.
So we'll be without
So he'll
him.
be out for the first 2 games of the regular season.
Gotcha.
So you might not see him in the lineup kind of in those games just to see what your decor will be, just to give guys a shot that might be in.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be surprised if he's might be not in the lineup. It doesn't mean he's not going to make the team.
Right. Serving a
It just
suspension.
means they want to kind of see what they have. Because
Gotcha.
you want to get closer to that opening night roster
For sure.
and get guys fresh. So I would be expecting, I'm hoping Lads and Matichuk are healthy.
Yep.
I'm expecting to see them in there.
Absolutely.
But we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is all we got for today. Let us know how we did with our predictions, some of our hot takes. We will have more recaps for you next week, so look forward to that. As always, you can get a hold of us through email at 4ptbpetesake@gmail.com. You can comment on any of our videos on either YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or wherever you listen to the podcast. Even Spotify, I think, has a comment section as well. So let us know your predictions and how you think we did. Thanks again for tuning in, and we hope to see you a week from Thursday at the barn supporting the boys for the kickoff to the regular season. And as always, go Pete's, go!